I know this works because this is the exact method I use to finally clear my skin, improve my anxiety, and get my period back after 10 plus years on birth control as a registered dietitian and hormone expert. Hello, welcome back to She's in Sync. I said before I pressed record, I'm not going to say I'm super excited for this episode because I say that every single week, I feel like. So we're going to go ahead and dive in, but I am super pumped for this episode because we're going to break down 4 steps for properly coming off birth control. So, the first thing I want to talk about is why it's important to properly prep to stop birth control. So, the biggest mistake women make is quitting birth control cold turkey. And that makes sense because most of the time, doctors, OBs, they don't tell us any different. They're like, when you start having that conversation, you are probably told, well, just stop whenever and see what happens and come back if anything bad happens. And this is very on point for conventional medicine, where it's like, well, let's just deal with the symptoms when they pop up versus in functional medicine and nutrition, we like to prevent symptoms from happening in the first place. We're more proactive and want to heal deep down versus just kind of putting out fires when symptoms come up. So, birth control impacts the entire body, right? Like I talk about this a lot. Some examples are it changes our brain, it literally changes our brain, and it increases our risk for anxiety and depression. I'm going to be talking a deep dive about this in a couple weeks. I already have this other recording planned. I'm going to be really looking forward to it. I think it's going to resonate a lot with you, but birth control does impact our risk of developing anxiety and depression, and it impacts our mental health. It overburdens the liver. It impairs detoxification and our elimination of toxins and waste. It causes gut dysbiosis, so it encourages the growth of bad bacteria and reduces the growth and proliferation of good bacteria. It also negatively impacts the microbiome as a whole in terms of stomach acid production, all that kind of stuff. It shut downs our body's ability to naturally make its own hormones. This is huge. Hormones are essential for men and women. And when we have issues in hormones, that presents in a lot of different ways. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into this later on in the podcast. But I'm going to talk about how I normally actually don't test hormones specifically, but how I do the deeper rooted work to look at why our hormones imbalanced. Because I'm just going to pause there because we're going to dive into it later. But it does shut off your body's natural birth control, shuts off your body's natural ability to make its own hormones. It also causes widespread inflammation. There's various mechanisms for this, including high free copper, iron overload, leaky gut, etc. And it also causes mineral depletion. So, minerals are really, really important in the body. And when we're depleted in minerals, that can affect every single body system, including the gut, the liver, inflammation, all those types of things, your thyroid, metabolism. So, like I said, the biggest mistake women make, unfortunately, and most of the time it's just due to a lack of knowledge. I know that was the case for me. I did quit birth control cold turkey, and then I dealt with post birth control syndrome for 4 years after until I discovered the world of functional nutrition and root cause healing. And most women, most doctors just don't tell us that. And there's various reasons for this, but the biggest is that they're not bad people. They don't want us to suffer. They just aren't taught this. There's limited training on how birth control affects the gut and nutrients and hormones long term. So proactive support isn't something that is standard in mainstream medical communities. And like I said, the focus is typically on managing symptoms after they appear versus preventing them. And a lot of docs just don't understand the mechanisms of birth control. Doctors still put women on birth control to get their period back, quote unquote, when you're not actually ovulating on the pill. They put women on it when they're having painful periods versus asking the deeper question of what's causing those painful periods, what's causing the missing period, what's causing the acne. And that's what I do in my practice. And so that's what we're going to be discussing today is my approach to healing and coming off birth control, especially if you were put on birth control for any specific reason that I just mentioned, maybe you're put on it for acne, for example, or you're put on it for painful or missing periods, those things aren't just going to magically disappear. Birth control masked those symptoms. It doesn't solve those symptoms. And unfortunately, because of how it works, it adds fuel to the fire by, impacting your detox pathways, overburdening the liver, negatively impacting the gut, depleting minerals. So those symptoms, oftentimes, if we don't correct the root cause of those problems, they're going to come back, and they're going to come back oftentimes even worse than when you started the pill, because you've probably been on it for years at this point. So we want to really make for sure that we're getting deep into what actually is going on there and correcting it at the source. So let's dive into that right now. Step number one in properly prepping to come off birth control is analyzing. I do this by starting off with a 75-minute deep dive assessment with all of my VIP one-on-one clients. These clients are with me for at least 5 months, and we are starting with this deep dive assessment because I want to gather as much information as possible. And to put this into perspective, think about how long you spend with your doctor, right? Like probably not 75 minutes ever. Maybe if you add up your lifetime or, a couple of years, but most of the time, doctors just don't have that time. That's, again, no fault of their own. It's just not built into the way our medical system works, unfortunately. And I think that's a true problem because that's where there is a lack of personalization and individualization with our care and a lack of listening too. So I start off with this deep dive assessment because I want to gather as much information as possible about what is that person's health history. When did she start birth control? Why did she start birth control? How long is she on birth control? Did she play what I call birth control roulette, where she's kind of been bopped around different types of birth control because maybe she was really depressed on this birth control. She was really anxious. She broke out on this one. That's giving me crucial information as well. I also want to assess nutrition and lifestyle. A lot of my women come to me and they are, whether intentionally or unintentionally, underfueling themselves. So this is huge. And most of my women too, it's more of like, I'm just being healthy. Like I'm intermittent fasting because that's healthy. I'm, skipping snacks because that's healthy. I'm really focusing on protein, but lacking in carbs and fat because that's healthy. So I want to make for sure that we are fueling our bodies enough. That is step number one, that plus regulating our nervous system. Step number one for a smooth transition off birth control in this space. This is part of just getting curious, identifying, okay, where are there gaps already, even before we have the lab data back. So looking at, are we eating enough? What's our relationship with food too? So I, am very open about my past history with a disordered relationship with food. I was never formally diagnosed with an eating disorder, 100% could have been and should have been. But if we are dealing with any emotional relationship with food, that's also something I want to assess because that's going to be another layer of our work together. And one thing that I'm very cognizant of is making sure that someone is not dealing with an active eating disorder before working with them in this capacity, because this is a program where we're going to dive deep. VIP one-on-one coaching is where we dive really, really deep into labs, and you have to be ready to do the things. And if we're really struggling with, I don't want to say the basics because it's not basic. It's really hard for a lot of people. I get it. I've been there. I worked at eating disorders for 8 years. But if we're working on the foundations of just eating enough, and that's really, really hard, we got to work on that first before we can dive into anything else, because your body needs fuel in order for it to do its job. So that's something I'm assessing. I mean, really when someone applies to work with me, but I'm also diving deeper into that too, because maybe they're recovered from an eating disorder. I just met with someone yesterday and, we were kind of chatting through her healing timeline and her recovery from an eating disorder. So that was good information for me to know. And she's 100% in a good place. And so we just kind of chatted about like what that looked like. And so I can be aware of any potential triggers. Like I said, too, we also want to look at stress. Is someone the type of person who is constantly on the go? They're running on cortisol, but they don't feel stressed. I relate to a lot of these things, as you can tell. And, as I say this a lot, you are who you attract. So a lot of my clients are too. And then current supplements. That's something I'm also analyzing in that first session because a lot of supplements might be making symptoms worse. So, for example, I had a client who was struggling with acne. So her main goals was she wanted to get off of birth control and also clear her skin because even though she was on birth control, she was still breaking out. And she was taking a B complex because she was doing her own research and she saw or read somewhere that B vitamins are depleted with birth control, which 100% they are. And for people with acne, B vitamins can also trigger breakouts. So she was taking this B complex thinking she was doing the right thing for her skin and her symptoms to prep to come off birth control, but it was actually making her acne worse. So this is where blindly supplementing, no go. Do not do that. Do not chat GPT. What supplements should I take? Because you really need that individualization. And sure enough, with her, right away, before we even got labs back, I said, stop taking that B complex. Her skin healed, like it got so much better. Her acne stopped flaring right away. And then I got her lab work back and her B12 was off the charts high. So I was like, this definitely confirms we need to stop taking that. And obviously her symptoms also reflected that as well. With my skin clients too, I'm also assessing their current skincare routine. And oftentimes I will recommend they contact and see an acne certified esthetician. And I give them resources to find one in their area. And there's a lot that do it virtually. But with acne specifically, it's a very internal and external approach. So I have some knowledge of external products and stuff from my own acne healing journey, but of course, I'm not an esthetician. So that is somewhere where I'll assess what they're currently doing and I'll send them a resource to look at pore cloggers. And I'll also send them a resource for a deeper consultation with an acne esthetician if that's something that they are dealing with. So even before we get those labs back, we have plenty of things to work on. I've never met with a client and I'm like, yep, you're doing everything perfect. I always start them on a supplement regimen of like a couple just preliminary supplements to start with. And I always tell them, okay, like these are supplements that you should stop because that's another piece of what I do in that analyze phase of what are you taking? What should we stop? And then focusing on nutrition, lifestyle, foundational things. The next thing we do is uncovering. And this is one of my favorite parts about my job because once these labs are coming in, it's like a really fun puzzle for me. And I get to look at all the labs and connect dots. So this is something that, again, is one of my favorite parts about my job because I do that deep dive assessment with people. And then I see their labs and I'm like, oh, yep, that tracks. That 100% makes sense. So I look at all the labs and I uncover deeper imbalances that were masked or caused or made worse by birth control. And of course, other lifestyle nutrition things. And these are not labs. I just want to say this. These aren't labs that your doctor is going to run. They're not your standard blood labs that you'll get. These are way deeper. Those labs that your doctor runs, they're just surface level. And the labs that I run, they're looking at liver health, they're looking at gut, they're looking at mineral status, cellular health, thyroid, so much information. It's really crucial to run the right labs before you stop birth control. If we're going back to prepping to stop, running the right labs to figure out where are those deeper imbalances masked, caused, or made worse by birth control. Examples of this are, for example, copper. This is one that I test on all of my clients in their blood labs. I'm looking at copper and ceruloplasmin, which I call ceruloplasmin. It's the bus that takes the kids to school. It's the transporter that takes copper where it needs to go in the body because copper rises with estrogen. And if we have too much copper, it can cause inflammation, PMS, painful periods, acne, fatigue, anxiety, PMS or PMDD symptoms. And with artificial estrogen and birth control, if you've been taking birth control for a while and you have this buildup of copper, our body can't detoxify that on its own, let alone if we have poor detox like organs in general from birth control. If they're bogged down, it becomes a big problem. So I like to see copper around 100. And a lot of my clients are coming in with levels at like 170s, 180s. And this is one where I get really excited when I see this because I'm like, okay, I can give these women answers. And this is a specific protocol we take them through as a high free copper detox protocol. And it's amazing how much better women feel with it. So I just get so excited when I see that, 'cause giving people answers when they previously were told like everything's fine, your labs look normal, it's all in your head, that's just a part of being a woman. It's not. It's not. If you feel awful, there's something going on. You know your body best. You're not crazy. And so for me to be able to tell them, hey, here's the reason why there is something wrong, it's it's a really cool piece of my job that I'm happy to provide that for women to make them feel better and give them peace of mind and again answers. Okay, that was a tangent on copper because I'm just really passionate about that when it comes to mental health specifically. But then a full iron panel too, because we're looking at iron recycling issues. Um, Mineral testing. So I do mineral testing in the hair because your hair shows the past 3 months of mineral status versus your blood is just that moment in time. And also, your mineral test will give us other crucial information about other body systems and also what's happening inside the cell versus blood is just showing levels outside the cell. So it's just a really well rounded way of looking at mineral status. And just as a prelude, next week I'm going to be diving deeper into that test specifically and why it's my number one recommended test for coming off birth control. So stay tuned for that. Iodine testing is another one. Iodine is a super important mineral. Unfortunately, the hair tissue mineral analysis test doesn't directly measure iodine. So I do, with my VIP coaching clients, add this one on because it is so crucial for thyroid, hormones, detoxification, metabolism, skin. And so this is one that we do regularly. It's an iodine loading test, a urine sample. And then a comprehensive stool analysis. This really looks at the gut, good guys, bad guys, if there's any inflammation or leaky gut going on, digestion, how are you absorbing the food and nutrition that you're eating. All of these labs are the ones that I run, and the only ones that your doctor will run are blood labs, but they're not going to be the in-depth blood labs. No one's testing copper. No one's doing a full iron panel. Heck, no one's doing a full thyroid panel either. So we're looking under the surface, under the hood, if you would, on all of these different things. The other thing too is looking at the body as a whole system, not just body parts in isolation. So a common mistake I see, which I mentioned earlier, is jumping straight to hormones of, oh, well, I got to test my hormones because I have hormonal acne, or I have really painful periods, so I got to test my hormones. Okay, you could, but at the same time, if you see your estrogen is off the charts or your testosterone is low or your progesterone is low, then what? Okay, you could go to a supplement. There are supplements out there, but that's another band-aid. We want to look at what's causing those hormones to be imbalanced. So I rarely run hormones on my clients. There might be special circumstances where we would. Well, let me back up. I do run testosterone on my acne clients because testosterone is, for some people, it can be a big root cause of acne, but that's not the only thing I'm running. But for the rest of my clients, I very rarely run hormones unless we maybe get like stuck or there's an additional thing going on that we need that information in addition to all these other tests that we do. So that's one thing that differentiates me as a hormone dietitian. I don't often run hormone labs because I did that in my post-birth control healing journey, and it left me with more questions and left me spending more money, time looking for answers than it gave me actually a plan of what to do. So I learned that the hard way. And another thing too is the gut. So if you have any gut issues like bloating or gas, or if you think it might be related to your acne, we can't just look at the gut in isolation. I will never do a GI map on its own. I always want to pair it with a mineral test because if your body is low in minerals, you might not have overgrowth or you might not have dysbiosis. You might just have low minerals because minerals are responsible for stomach acid production, which helps the digestion and absorption of minerals from your food and protein and all that kind of stuff. And so I've had clients who their GI map is like completely clean, but they're depleted in minerals. So it's important to look at all these things together versus just isolating one body part. And that is another mistake that I see even functional providers do is they just do one test or they just do like one body system in isolation, but that's not giving you the whole picture. It's really important to look at things from all angles. And finally, the way that I interpret labs is different. So I'm not only running different labs, I'm not only looking at how they all interconnect in the body and in relation to symptoms and birth control, I'm also interpreting them, which I'm interpreting them with a much more narrow lens. I'm looking at what's optimal for women's health, not just flagging something when it's a disease state. That's what a lot of times conventional medicine will do. They'll just look at, okay, well, your liver enzymes look normal until it's liver disease or cirrhosis. Your blood glucose looks normal until it's diabetes or thyroid. I mean, for thyroid, they have like really wide ranges. And so I'm looking at, okay, what's preventative? What's preventative medicine? What's preventative for optimal health? And that's another thing where a lot of women have come to me and they're like, well, I've gotten all these labs done, but I've just been told they look normal. And I'm like, well, that's because your doctor's looking at it with this wide net. And that's how they've been trained, where they're looking at what's normal for men and women. But excuse me, we are built way differently. And also, yeah, it is considered normal to them because it's not normal until it's a disease. So I want to look at it from the perspective of what's optimal for women's health and optimal for your goals in coming off of birth control. And this is something that I'm really passionate about and I will preach forever is getting the right person to look at your labs too with this specialty, because prepping to come off birth control this is what I do. This is my whole niche. This is my business. It's very specific. In fact, when I was, building my business, like this is what I wanted to focus on, but I was so scared that people would be like, oh, that's too niche or that's too specific. But I was like, no, like this is what I know this is such a need. And I have a specific skill set to help women transition off birth control without issues. But a lot of doctors, they don't have that information. A lot of other dietitians don't have this information. I mean, I have tons of dietitians who follow me because they want to learn more about their own body and just how to stop birth control in general. So really important to find the right person to look at your labs and interpret them the right way and run the right labs. Okay, that was a doozy. That was still step 2. So step 2, we're uncovering. Step 3 is customization. 100% customized protocols based on information that we gather at the assessment and your lab data. So we start with that assessment, that deep dive. We get initial protocol going with some preliminary foundational things and supplements to work on. We layer in that lab data, connecting the dots, and then we get an even more robust protocol. We can dive deeper into what supplements. Do we need to do a gut healing protocol? Do we need to replenish specific minerals? Do we need to optimize, gut health or liver support? Do we need to replenish iodine? What exactly is going on here? And so this is a combination of, adding on to nutrition. So I might give basics in the first session, and then I'll layer on, okay, with you, we need to focus on potassium and sodium. With you, we need to focus on calcium, magnesium. Maybe we need to focus on gut supportive foods, so like prebiotics, probiotics, polyphenols, resistant starches, versus the other person, it's really liver. So sulfur containing vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, collagen, herbs and spices. It's tailored based on your lab data and what your symptoms are. So we're really adding on to that. And then just focusing on supplements is something that I see a lot of people also fall short with. They just want to out supplement a poor diet and lifestyle. And my goal is I want to do smart supplementation. Supplements are expensive. And also, I don't know about you, but I don't like taking a million different pills. that is horrible to also travel with. So we're thinking about life worth living here and being realistic. That's not realistic. A lot of my women do come to me very deficient and very depleted in things or having lots of gut things going on where we have to do some more supplements up front. But again, my goal is smart supplementation. And I always give clients a graduation protocol when we are ending our time together and they are successfully graduating. And my goal is to par down that supplement list as much as possible. The other thing with just supplementing something is that you're not actually getting to the root cause. If you constantly have to supplement, so I'll use myself for an example. So for me, I know for me, magnesium and cod liver oil are two supplements that I personally need to take long term for my health goals. For other people, maybe they don't have to. But then there are other supplements where I started them. For example, I needed to start a liver supportive supplement because my liver enzymes were super, super high from over 10 years on birth control. But then that's something after a while I was able to stop. So you want to be able to not have to supplement with a ton of pills for the rest of your life. You want to do it strategically, and that's what I help my clients do too. With these protocols too, I also want to make them realistic. So going off what I just said about supplements, I also want to make all the other recommendations realistic. So if someone's a go person, we're going to have to be, very mindful of how they're fueling themselves throughout the day. We're going to have to pack food. We're going to have to talk about like a game plan for timing. We're going to have to talk about shelf stable things versus someone who is at home working all the time. It's going to be a different routine for them. It's very, very important for me to create a protocol that's customized to the person and also is just very mindful of what their lifestyle is like too. And that's where that one-on-one support and kind of like talking through these things, I might have an initial protocol, but then I might go through it with them. And I'm like, okay, like which of these foods for your liver do you actually like to incorporate versus just giving them a big list and being like, okay, like incorporate these. I want to just par it down so it's what they will actually do because that'll make them more successful, but then I will also make them keep going because it won't be so overwhelming to them. You know what I mean? So these will continue to evolve based on the person and their body, which leads me to step 4, which is refinement. Refinement is ongoing tweaking and ongoing support to adjust and refine protocols as we move through healing. There's going to be lots of phases of healing. So usually people start with this like, yes, I'm so excited. Let's do this. They get the labs, they get the protocol, and they're like, okay, this is a lot. This is kind of hard. And then most of the time, eventually, they reach this what's called this valley of despair, which sounds really depressing and dark, and it is. And the valley of despair is when they're just like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing all these things, but my skin keeps breaking out, or I'm doing all these things and I keep having painful periods. Don't get me wrong, you should be seeing like wins right away, and most of my clients do see wins right away. And healing takes time. If you have been struggling with painful periods for 10 years and we have tons of deficiencies going on and tons of inflammation going on, that isn't going to be an overnight fix. So we have to also respond to what your body's telling us. So sometimes people, you might have heard of a Herx reaction, which this a lot of times is talked about with gut killing protocols. This is where your body basically like rejects. So you might have skin purging, like acne purging. You might have like diarrhea or like cold sores or bloating. There's lots of different things that can happen. But some functional providers, especially, they're like, yes, that's good. Keep going. For me, that's a cue that this is too much for your body to handle right now. We need to back off. So we might reorganize some things. We might go back to detox support. We might go back to foundations just to build your body's resilience up to that. So then we can go into that without those strong reactions because I don't think Herx reactions are a good thing. I think it's your body waving a red flag, being like, stop, like this is too much. So I don't think those should be celebrated. I think those should be something we look at and we listen to. So this is where we might have this plan on paper, but we have to really tailor everything to your body and how it responds. And sometimes that means we follow the plan from start to finish, no problem. And then sometimes that means we reorganize things or we back off or we switch things up. That's okay. So most of the time when I get this lab data back, we have a lot to work on. Like most of the time, there's a lot of things to work on, which that also is really nice because for my clients, when they've been told like, oh, these things are normal, they're like, oh, good, like something's wrong with me. I'm like, yeah, actually, there's a lot wrong. So that's actually good news for them. We always joke, I'm like, yay, there's something wrong with you. So I'll usually phase it out of like, okay, first phase is adequate nutrition, mineral replenishment, stress support. Phase two, we're going to layer in high free copper protocol and iodine protocol. Then phase three, maybe we'll layer in a gut killing protocol if needed. That's just an example. We also have to go in order. We can't just go straight to the gut killing protocol. If I see gut microbiome stuff, that's usually the last thing I'll touch because those are more intense protocols. So this is why, again, it's very important to go in order for these things versus diving into something more intense before your body is ready. All that being said, this is why it's so helpful to have that expert in your corner, the cheerleader, if you will, just giving you this data, but also helping you refine it and listening to your body and really adjusting it based on where you're at, how your body responds in relation to your long term goals of getting off birth control with pain free periods, consistent monthly periods, clear skin, no mood swings. So, this 4-step framework that I just talked about isn't just a checklist of like, check this off, check this off. No, it's a strategic root cause driven roadmap designed to fast track your results and prevent you from wasting months or 4 years like I did trying random supplements or TikTok hacks or chat GPTing your way through. Those things don't work. I've been there and my clients have been there. And that's why I know this after working with so many women and going through it myself. This is where you need that one on one attention and that data from your body to help guide you. I want to make this clear. This isn't just anecdotal. I know this works because this is the exact method I use to finally clear my skin, improve my anxiety, and get my period back after 10 plus years on birth control as a registered dietitian and hormone expert myself. And this isn't just me. Over the past, I'd say like 1.5 years. I mean, I was kind of like experimenting on myself for quite a while when I first learned all things functional nutrition. But for the course of the past 1 to 1.5 years, I've helped 24 clients do the exact same thing using this repeatable framework. And wow, I cannot believe, actually, now that I'm saying that, that it's already been 24 women just within the past like year itself. That's wild to me. I can't wait to see how many that goes up to this next year and in 5 years. That'll be so cool to track. So each of these phases builds on the next phase to ensure that your body is truly supported from the inside out. And so you're not just getting your period back, you're deeply healing your skin, your energy, your mood, your metabolism in a sustainable, realistic way. Like I said, that's very important to me. So if you're nodding your head, thinking this is me, if you're navigating post pill symptoms, or maybe you're planning to stop birth control and you want to avoid acne, fatigue, painful periods, or other hormone symptoms, this is your invitation. My VIP one-on-one coaching program is for the woman who's ready to get to the root, not just mask symptoms. And if you're ready for expert support and a personalized plan to heal your body after birth control and before stopping birth control, head to link in the show notes to apply. And I just also want to say too, if finances feel like a hurdle for you, I don't want that to be a reason for us not to work together and for you not to get the support you need to have a smooth transition off birth control. Still apply anyways. I have various payment plan options, extended financing, and we'll find an option that works best for you. Okay. So again, if you're really nervous about stopping birth control, I mean, you're probably listening to this, or maybe you've already stopped and you are feeling off, you are having symptoms, then I would encourage you to apply to VIP coaching because you'll get this 4-step process and someone holding your hand through it and customizing everything based on your labs, your body, your lifestyle. So let's dive into how I'm nourishing myself recently. And this one actually is really good timing. I didn't plan it this way, but this just so happened to work out. This morning, I actually went and got my own labs drawn. And I test my own labs as well as I do different functional lab testing on myself yearly, if not twice a year, just to kind of check in to see how's my health? How are things going? Is there anything that I need to work on or be aware of? And fun fact, when I was first going through this journey many years ago, I was learning about functional nutrition after I kind of like had exhausted all other options. And I was learning all about functional lab work. And I specifically remember reaching out to my doctor, asking her, I sent her this list of labs that I asked if she would run for me because I was going to try and get them covered under my insurance. And she flat out refused. She was like, I don't work with functional providers. I don't believe in functional labs. We can talk about it at your next appointment. And I was so frustrated. I remember tearing up and I was like, oh my gosh, I finally felt like I had answers. I finally felt like I had a direction and I was just shut down. And I felt really defeated and really dismissed. So ever since then, I still go to my doctor for my yearly exam. I mean, I do think that having a primary care physician is very important. I think that they are, of course, necessary. And, you never know when you're going to need someone in an emergency. But for me personally, that was a turning point, and I was like, F it. I'm going to monitor my own health. I know more about this than probably a lot of people out there. Let me do this myself. And so I learned how to read the labs myself. I learned how to, this is what this framework was built of, was this story and me not getting the support I needed after I stopped birth control. And then learning if I would have just known this information before, I wouldn't have had to deal with that. So ever since then, I monitor my own labs, and theoretically I could ask my doctor just to get some covered by insurance, but I just find it so much easier just for me to pay out of pocket, and it's worth it to me. Like, investing in my health is something that's very important to me. Feeling my best is very important to me. So it is an expense that I do for my own self-care. And it also, I don't want to get rejected again and being like, nope, I'm not going to run those. I'm like, it's just easier for me to do it on my own. So that's how I'm nourishing myself. Is I went and got blood labs drawn, and I'm very excited to see my results. That's my nerdy side coming out. Is super excited. Again, I love, 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 love connecting the dots to blood labs and other functional labs that I run. So that includes myself too. All right, this was a long-winded episode. If you're still here, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you resonated with this episode, if it was helpful for you, please like, subscribe, leave a review. It really does mean the world to me, and it helps other women like you find the show. Thank you again, and until next time, stay nourished, everybody.